Let me clear my throat. Am I streaming? I may be. I never really know. Let's see. Looks like I am. Perhaps I am. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Hellmare Nightscape. And there's an Enderman around here. I'm streaming this Minecraft world with all this luxury. This previously unknown luxury. He's in my house. I'm gonna go hide from him down here and face the wall so he doesn't eat me. I want to figure out how to tweet the link here. So bear with me just a second. I don't know how to do this. It's probably gonna wind up kind of like streaming myself, if that makes sense. I'm gonna get some echo here as I try to figure out how to share this. Is this my stream? It's very frustrating. You know, I don't know anything about Twitch. I think it's something like that weirdos and, like creeps do, but they keep on talking about politics on it, the Voshes or whatever, and they play video games while they do it, and so they have all these fucking 13-year-olds totally confused about what it means to not be an asshole. So I'm, trying to remedy that. Oh yeah, rain and an Enderman. Can you not see the, hey Death Leopards, how's it going? Check out my new pad. Let me just, anyways, I don't know how to drop this link. I wanted to drop a link into Twitter, but it's boring to do that. I'd rather show off this. So check this out. See all this magic? You see all this? Look at all this iron I got. I got some more right here. I went down to the caves. I'll show you down in the caves here in a second. They're pretty exciting. I had some battles down there. And I built all this. Get out of there, Enderman. What a jerk. I'm not comfortable fighting that Enderman. I don't think it'll let me sleep because there's a monster next to my bed. But that's okay. I'll come back up here in a minute. I'm not super worried about it. I'll just go back down into my cave, and then I'll show you my house in a minute. So I had this all packed up with a bunch of... the floor is hollowed out because I put a bunch of... what are these things about? Chests down here. And then I dug all this down. This is all new, I think. Bear with me, I'm going to have a sip of this beer. I have some food and torches. Yep, I got everything I need. So this is Y16, I think. Yeah, Y16, which my online research told me is the appropriate place to start mining for iron. So that's what I started doing, and then I, came across this. Look at this. This is a 1.18. Look at that motherfucker. There's one in here too. These jerks come out when it's raining, I guess. So I had to go and see. I came up through the floor because I didn't want to come from there. So one of the things I'd like to do is explore this cave a little bit. Look, I dug not all the way down. I stopped putting stairs after a little bit, but I dug down. Let's see how far. That's pretty good. I found some ore here I wanted to silk touch so I could keep it because it's pretty. Well, this is pretty low. Negative 31. I think you're supposed to mine for diamonds now around negative 59 or so. In fact, maybe it would be wise. I could spend a little bit of time just digging this out some more, and then I'll show you the cave too. Now this fucking deep slate is so slow. I'll do that off stream. It's boring to do right now. It's just about the most boring thing there is. So I wanted to show this cave and show off some of the builds I did. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not much of a builder, so I'll show you the house, and maybe you can help me figure out how to use the space a little bit better, and how to finish. I haven't detailed the outside at all. It kind of looks like shit. But I've already been in here and lit some of this stuff up, so I wanted to just show this cave a little bit and stay. Ooh, oh, it's a slime chunk. Nice. That's great. Well, maybe I'll flatten some of this out to give those guys a place to spawn. I guess it spawned and ran into that lava, but that's great to get some slime. So I'll show you the improvements I've made. I cleared a lot of forests. I got some animals up. I lit up this cave some, as you can see, and I built that house. And then we talk a little bit about... I'm going to avoid talking about the stuff I was talking about yesterday, which is like all that online bullshit about BreadTube being a psyop or whatever. although I did have another Twitter exchange today, ooh, iron, that just was identical to what the, I don't know what to call them, the pro crypto corporate left, you know, the bread tube people. What they always say, which is they ignore the actual, allegations and just repeat whatever idiot shit Sam Cedar has said. And I don't have a lot of respect for Sam Cedar, although I really liked that TV show, the cartoon called Home Movies, Home Videos, something like that. That he was on a long time ago, and so I'll prefer to remember him as that character and as nothing else. Do I have anything here? I wanted to. I guess I can just do this out. There's some of this water running everywhere. I need to be careful too, because there could still be baddies around. Why doesn't that just run straight into the ground now? Why is it still like flowing over or something? Just go down. All right, whatever. So, and then I was going to talk a little bit about state and revolution, like I said, which is, theory. I don't like him. He's not my favorite character. I'm agreeing with Death Leopards here in the chat. And yeah, he pretty much ruins fucking Bob's Burgers for me. Although I do like Kristen Shaw or whatever her name is. I liked her on Flight of the Conchords. Is the totally insane fan of that band. But yes, so state and revolution I think is a much more interesting thing. Like I said, I'd rather try to do a little bit of theory, which is what I see actually missing, rather than just rehash. Like, I think there's a fucking loop, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. On, YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that, of these people that I guess I, in some ways I'm like sympathetic to their position. They have the same basic outlook that I do, but the way that they politically, not manic depressive, the way they show this politically online is just by critiquing other, idiot YouTubers, and those people are usually just critiquing other podcasters, and even here, critique is already probably too generous a word, and so I want to not ignore that entirely, because the whole point of me doing this sort of silly spend an hour hanging out playing Minecraft is because I'm trying to infiltrate exactly these spaces. I don't want to give them up to these simpletons and liars and CIA agents, which I probably shouldn't even joke about, since people take the joke as though it's a serious accusation, and then you wind up doing yourself a great disservice when there is actual evidence of collusion. But I don't want to cede this ground entirely to them. And so I have to talk about, the latest Jimmy Dore video or whatever other stuff people are pulling their hair out over from time to time. But I refuse to give into that entirely. And like I said, the thing that I enjoy the most and the things that I want to learn about are, political theory and history related, and economics, like the actual serious hard shit, not the superficial, mere phenomena, but the underlying events themselves, and the scientific, if you like, or systematic theories of knowledge that allow us to comprehend them. God, look how long this thing goes on. Oop, nope, I don't like those. I don't mess with, since they killed me last time, I don't even fuck with skeletons. I just run away. And so State and Revolution, I think, is a really good place to do a little bit of that work, because it's a short text, and it's very strong, polemical in its arguments. It is not difficult, I think, to master this text, although, like I said, I'm still learning, so I wouldn't consider myself a master of that particular text at this point, although I've read it several times. But I just want to talk about it, preferably with other people, so folks can say, here's where you're wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll tell you some ways I've been wrong too, and maybe can help me to have a better understanding. And I don't mind at all engaging with the serious social democrats and anarchists, as few as they may be in America or online, with their sort of substantive objections to this text. There's a lot of, I don't know, everybody's already kind of in their camps. And I wasn't a Marxist-Leninist prior to having read State and Revolution. And that, I suppose that's my orientation now, although I don't spend a lot of time like sort of labeling myself in that way. I think of myself as a communist and a revolutionary socialist for, for all the good that does me in terms of actually accomplishing anything. And the reason I don't feel like I need to say, oh, it's this tendency or that tendency, I'm gonna get out of here for a minute. It's giving me claustrophobia. Is because I think that Lenin's reading, because I think that Marx's understanding of communism is utterly persuasive, and that Lenin's reading of Marx is utterly persuasive, and so it seems like redundant to say, oh, well, like what kind of communist are you? It's like, this is dogmatic, I know, and I'm being reductive and silly here, but it's like, well, I'm the kind, the kind that actually makes some sense. If you see what I'm saying there, like, I don't need to say, oh, it's a Marxist version of socialism. It's like, no, it's socialism as explicated by Marx and Engels and others. It's not like, oh, I'm a Leninist type of Marxist. It's like, no, I'm someone who's, read Marx and understands it, and noticed that Lenin also, is quite a compelling reader of Marx. And so if you, especially in that particular text, and so if you disagree with my reading of Marx, you disagree with the best way to accomplish socialism or what socialism is, and you have some evidence to bring to bear. God, these guys have been around here everywhere. Did you see those Illagers, the raiding party? That's like the 4th time I've seen them. They must just be hanging out. I don't even know if it's the same ones, but I want to get inside. I'm not trying to, those guys are deadly. Yeah, arr. So it's all Endermen and Illagers. What am I supposed to do? I just supposed to run around and hide? Well, we could talk about this space a little bit, too, while I collect my thoughts on State and Revolution when I go back out and actually get into a project, because I can go over there and cut down some trees and hide from these guys or something. So obviously this is very unfinished. Like, you see all these sharp angles everywhere. Like, this looks stupid. I just put in these windows. I could change where the storage area is. This may wind up being plenty of storage for my original needs here. This I was thinking of making into sort of, as you could tell, sort of a bedroom. These fucking all the groaning in the background sounds like they're having some kind of weird orgy down there. I could probably go out and kill them, to be honest. They're not that smart, but neither am I. But I want to figure out the best way to divide this up, and I think this may be a good place to have a bedroom, a little storage area. I don't know if I could fit an enchanting setup. Like, I think actually right here is where an enchanting setup could fit in pretty easily. And then down here I wanted a kitchen. This could actually be storage area if I preferred, or this could be storage area. I wanted some kind of centerpiece here. I was thinking about dividing up this room a little bit. It's just one big room. I don't know if the deep slate, this dark color, is the best choice in here, but I think it'll look good when I start putting in some greenery. I got some shears, so I'll cut down some leaves and put some plants and stuff like that in here. And I got a pet dog. I only had one bone, but it worked. I haven't named him. Obviously, I don't have a name tag yet. It's way too early for that, at least in my experience. Where'd he go? Hope he didn't just die. But that's cool. I'm happy to have him. I need to get another one so I could breed some up. And, like the ceiling needs to be, it can't just be like, I need some steps up there or something to kind of ease the transition. And I need to get some item frames going as well, because I can't much stand not knowing what's in any of these chests. I'm always super disorganized, I made a bunch of coal as well, or charcoal. And I would like to go outside and show this thing off, but I'm probably going to die if I do. Do they see me? Crossbow loads. Oh no! How close are they? Jesus. God damn it. They're so close. I don't want to fight them all right now. I'm just going to run away. Too fast for them. Too smart for these jerks. Killed last time. Nope. I don't think so. I don't think so, guys. I wish I could just lead them away. They're probably still chasing me. Right back inside. There they are. Way the hell over there. I want that, I really do want that banner, though. Do I have any more bread? I have some fish. Yeah, I would love to... I want that thing on his head so badly, so I can decorate my wall with it and show my dominance. I love how they just fucking stare at you from a distance, but I'm not going to try it, because if I die, I'll be upset. Let me just go over here and cut down some trees. God damn it, I can kill that one. You gonna die. Yeah, load up. Load up, bud. Shoot it. Yeah, that's right, bitch. So, State and Revolution. What is this text about? Sorry to make such an awkward transition. Well, it's an argument against two sort of dominant counter tendencies purporting to be socialist, if that makes sense. One of which is the sort of reformist, opportunist approach to socialism that, you know, Lenin famously associates with Karl Kautsky. And the problem there is that there's too much faith put in bourgeois democracy as the mechanism for developing worker self-rule, essentially. God, I thought you were dead by now. Right, gotta run away. And then the other tendency that Lenin is opposing is anarchism. And it's polemical, so he's taking jabs at both of them repeatedly. And the reason that he, you know, in a nutshell, the reason that Lenin finds anarchism unsatisfactory is because, on his reading, and I'm sure some anarchists will find this upsetting, it provides no sort of guarantee or strategy for protecting any revolutionary gains that workers might win. It doesn't even really provide any way to win those advancements, right? Because by abandoning the concept of the state, according to Lenin, and I think this is persuasive, you also abandon the ability to organize workers to, you know, oppress, essentially, to eliminate the bourgeoisie. And so, what are you seriously about if all you're doing is saying, well, I'm a socialist or whatever, but you're not actually arming workers, you're not actually educating workers. Ah, yeah, that's right. And you're not consistently and completely excluding and eliminating both the bourgeoisie, but not just as people, also the conditions of possibility for the bourgeoisie, right? Property, ownership of the means of production, etc. And so those are the two broad critiques that Lenin brings up in State and Revolution. And the reason I think, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that this is interesting, but one of the obvious reasons is that, look, that's beautiful, that, hey, that's pretty good. I can use that next time a raid comes too, that bow and arrow, that crossbow. The reason this stuff is still relevant today, I think, maybe even more so than it has been for years, is because these two tendencies are still sort of ascendant on the so-called left. And I'm not, you know, persuaded that anarchism, as I understand it, offers a sound strategy for defeating capitalism. And I'm damn sure not persuaded that social democracy will get us there. What do I need? Pants? Yeah. And my thinking on this is, you know, in line with not only what I've observed, but with the arguments that Lenin makes by drawing on Marx and Engels' discussion of the state. And so the crux, you know, to get to that specifically, the crux of the, hey, check this out. Oh, yeah. Now we're cooking. The crux of the argument relies on Lenin's, I think, very persuasive and literary reading, you know, interpretation of, well, Marx and Engels' interpretation of several historical events, but the most notable one being the brief success, short-lived success of the Paris Commune of 1871, which was, I think we could argue, the first and perhaps at that time only workers' state dictatorship of the proletariat that had ever been established. And it was bloodily repressed after about 2 weeks in March, I think, of 1871, March or May, I think it's March, by the reactionary, French forces who were erstwhile distracted by the Franco-Prussian War, which opened up the possibility of the workers and segments of the Paris population to seize control of the state machinery, but did, perhaps because of their tactical and strategic errors, or perhaps because of other circumstances, this revolution was not destined to last. And among so Marx sort of became famous in a way. He had written other stuff and was well known in certain circles, but his really excellent political essay called "The Civil War in France," which is probably my favorite thing that he wrote, at least my favorite of his political writings, treats of this revolution, this first successful and then failed revolutionary state. And it should be said also that, in my understanding, Marx initially opposed, right, Lenin makes this point, initially opposed the decision to form what became known as the Paris Commune, and because he thought this was premature and ill-advised, etc. But as soon as and also because of some of the politics of figures involved, Blanqui was a very central figure in French radical politics at the time, and his strategies and tactics for organizing a revolution, I guess you would say, were not those of Marx. Blanqui preferred sort of a small, secret cadre of highly, almost like a cell, I guess you would say, to execute a coup, whereas Marx, preferred open, widespread mass organization of the working classes, with a guiding hand played by, certain what would become known as the vanguard, I suppose, right? Those that had the historical and theoretical knowledge to guide the workers in the correct, right, historically correct direction. And so there was, and the conditions in Paris, in France, did not appear immediately fortuitous to Marx, but he threw his weight behind the Paris Commune, behind the workers' revolution there, if that's what we want to call it. I think that's probably appropriate, as soon as he was able. And that's what the Civil War in France is, the text. And so you get a lot of, when you're reading Marx, you don't really get a chance to look at all of this, a lot. You don't really get a chance to hear his views on, quote, what communism should look like, or what the socialist state should look like, to use Lenin's distinction there. And you get some hints here and there, right? You get the critique of the Gotha program, and you get some of the language in the Communist Manifesto, although that's really early. That's 1848, obviously. The Civil War in France is much later. It was written in 1870 or thereabouts, while he was working on Capital, or around that same time. And so his actual comments, sorry, I have to take a drink from my beer here, on a real-life revolution that was, at least to some extent, successful, help us understand, for what it's worth, what Marx's views on what a state on State and Revolution, to be honest. That's why Lenin chose that as the title of his work. And so you don't have to, speculate. You can just read Civil War in France. And it's beautifully written, too. I think Marx's prose is pretty amazing across the board. And it's really on full display there. Um, Let me gather my thoughts here. What is it I want to accomplish? I have several things. Let me put my political rambling on pause for a second so I can talk about Minecraft. So I'm not upset. As you can see, there's some problems with the roof line here, but you see the idea I'm going for. And Death Leopards, if you're still around, feel free to chime in the chat on how you think this build might be improved. I know one thing I'll do is come in and knock out some, like I have so much oak, it looks just totally monotonous. So I'll put some stripped oak logs in there. Let me see if I can grab a few and show what that effect looks like. And I may also add a little bit. I think I have room back here. I wanted to do something kind of funky. See, I haven't done any of the roof back here at all. That's why it looks like shit. So I have this sort of weird extension here that I wanted to do something with. I thought I might plant a garden down here and maybe have something like a little, I don't know if I would do it at this level or up here, but have a little bit of a balcony. But I'm not ready to jump into that yet. I have a lot of flowers I would like to put around. And then I could do, clear all these trees and put some gardens and walkways and fountains, for example, back here in this area. And then I think I may just leave this as my portal once I go get some obsidian. Like, I think this will just be the portal that never stops freaking burning. Oh, wait, stop. Because I think it's cool looking. And then I'll decorate around it, once I go into the nether, I can get all the, whatever nether-themed blocks I want to put in here. And I'll just let this be my portal. I don't even think I'll put it inside. I might just leave it outside like that. It depends on what I do with villagers, because if you have villagers wandering around nearby, they will just walk into the nether and you'll lose like all your fleshers or whatever. I've had it happen before. So that's my plan back here. And I'm going to throw in a couple of these stripped oak logs just to show what that looks like. Let's see if I can... I think it's the stripped oak. It may be the stripped birch, but I'm pretty sure it's the oak is what I want. And let's see. Oops, another one. And let's see how that looks. Go away. And this is like a pretty standard building technique. There's not I could do rows, to like kind of make it look like a row of stripped oak here, but I think it may actually be nicer if I just kind of randomly throw some in. And I don't know, some of this may wind up getting blocked later. I gotta add some posts here too. See, I like that effect, so I'll probably do that around here. That will make it look a little bit prettier than it does now. Just miles and miles of endless oak planks looks like shit. Oops, I missed. And then I also wanted to get some shears, which I have on me, and maybe start decorating around and inside a little bit. Maybe plant some flowers and that sort of stuff. Strip logs, yeah, I agree. Strip logs is the way to go. Just to add a little bit, like even just that tiny little bit, to me makes it look so much better. But it looks like it kind of pretends to add a little bit of depth when it's not actually. I think that needs to face the other way, but I definitely need to add some depth. I really only started detailing the front, like just a little bit, as you can tell. But even that, to break it up, I'll do more than that, but that just makes it look so much better already to me. But this front was really flat, and it's the only side that I've kind of worked on. I don't know if it's wise to... I did a birch roof, and then I added the... as you can see, I added the cobblestone on the outside, and it looks kind of heavy. Like I may want to go back and change that from cobble to something else. It just looks like too bulky to be up there, but it's not horrible. And I had trouble working in these logs here, so I had to add on some to the roof. I don't know. I think it looks fine. It's a hell of a lot better than just that gross flat look. And I like that my roof lines are slightly different shapes here, and I added in some windows. But like some of this stuff, like I don't like the way this looks here. This will probably wind up being stairs or something like that. And then I can add some flowers and some, in fact, let me go ahead and start collecting some leaves. So I can start adding some of this stuff in around here too. And that'll help. I won't do it all the way around, but I can do some in the front so it just looks less terrible. And let me go, I know there's a whole shitload of flowers around here somewhere. I remember seeing them. And so I can gather some of those too. Maybe I'll remember. But we'll throw some of this down just to show what it'll look like. Damn, that was a lot of leaves. You know, something simple. And I'll do some of this stuff inside too. But even this little bit makes it look so much less terrible. How can you not love this stuff? So sorry, I'm a bit distracted by Minecraft, which I do enjoy. And as you can see, let's see, does it tell me what day I'm on somewhere here? What day? Day. Oh, I never know where it is. I think it's like day 20 or something like that. Oh well. You probably see it. I don't see it. I'll figure it out. Oh, there it is. Day 26, right in the center of the screen. Right below that cobblestone. Day 26. So that's good. I think that I've already lived longer than I did last time, so that's a good sign. Let me return then to what I was rambling on about a little bit with State and Revolution. So Bernie Sanders, to me, is the modern Kautsky, with some obvious differences. So Karl Kautsky was actually a sort of an acolyte and friend of Marx and Engels. Like he had very legit. He was, the German extension of Marxism for many years, and you can find Lenin citing Kautsky favorably in certain places, or at least with more favor than he would go on to sort of lose, famously lose. And Bernie Sanders is a politician. He's not a theorist, and he's not in any sense of the word a Marxist. And so it's as problematic, as they like to say, as problematic as Karl Kautsky is, I think you can make a claim that he's a much more serious guy than Bernie Sanders is. Bernie Sanders is not a theorist. He's not a historian. He's just a bourgeois politician posturing as a leftist. So I don't mean to compare them in every way, but there are obvious comparisons between the, and I hope that's not, look, I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary in 2016 before I kind of really understood what he was about politically. And so I'm not trying to just like shit on, I don't care to shit on Bernie Sanders supporters. That's not my goal. I'm trying to defend my point of view here, explain my position. And it's not just mine. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of Marxists have this position that Bernie Sanders' function is essentially to de-radicalize, otherwise potentially revolutionary leftists, and to sheepdog or funnel those potential revolutionary energies back into the mainstream, back into the fold of the Democratic Party. And that in performing this function, he reveals his true class character, which is, ruling class, which is an instrument of the ruling class who is co-opting and pretending to serve the interests of the laboring class. And there's evidence for this view. This is, deviating from Lenin. I'm just trying to show you why I think Lenin's analysis is still very, very relevant, because his critiques of Kautsky apply, mutatis mutandis to Bernie Sanders and to the DSA and other sort of forces in our contemporary society. And so you can look at Sanders' voting record, for example, on imperialism and look at his statements, what he said about socialist countries, or about quasi-socialist or anti-imperialist. Darn it, I knew that was going to happen. Sort of countries like, oops, the fuck am I doing? Like Venezuela, those types of countries that we oppose in the name of American democracy, right? We oppose through malicious and deeply destructive force. And there's an excellent article. I think it was published in Left Voice. I think was the outlet on detailing Bernie Sanders' long history of sort of playing the fool for the imperialists. Then, of course, the most I guess there's at least two other pieces of evidence we could bring to bear. These things are noisy. There's the fact that he, supported Clinton and supported Biden. He turned vote blue, not even turned. He's always been a vote blue, no matter who type of guy. And, you've really lost the plot as a leftist, in my opinion, if you're supporting the Democratic Party for reasons that we could explore. I just think they're obvious to anyone watching this particular stream, but for reasons we could explore elsewhere or at another time, but which are very well explored on YouTube in that space I was sort of talking about earlier that I like to distance myself from a bit. And then the third, aspect, so you have Sanders' voting record on imperialism, his speech on imperialism. You have, and you could look at his stance on Israel, look at his stance on weapon manufacturing in his home state, look at his vote on the authorization for the use of military force that, ignited our sort of disastrous global war on terror nonsense in the U.S. Like there's just like tons of evidence all over the place that he's an empire guy. And then, like I said, you can also take a look at his actual function politically, where he's basically getting people who pretend at least to hold their noses to vote Democratic, but nevertheless fall in line when St. Bernard tells them. That's just to reiterate the 2 points I made. And then I think more rhetorically, so this is less important, but it is important nevertheless, I think you can look at Sanders' reappropriation or co-optation of rhetoric. Yes, Death Leopard's bringing the point that Bernie voted for war appropriation over and over, even though he didn't actually vote directly for war. Yeah, I mean, he has a real mixed record. It's funny that I totally agree with you. He occasionally opposed some appropriate, funding the war machine, defense appropriation bills. Some of them are no votes, but this is often performative anyways. But a lot of them are not even performative resistance. He voted in favor of shitloads of money for the U.S. military over and over and over. And it's funny what passes as anti-imperialism here, I meant to build an X, is like, oh, well, if you only vote to support the empire 75% of the time, you're an anti-imperialist. It's absolutely absurd. And so that actually, so we could talk a little bit, we have just enough time to remind ourselves a bit about the idea of social chauvinism that Lenin brings up in his criticism of the German Social Democrats, Kautsky included. But the other point I wanted to make is that, just briefly and obviously, Sanders' rhetoric really supports the claim, I think, that his policies are socialist in name only, but bourgeois capitalist indeed. Oops, I don't want to burn my iron on that. Because, he talked over and over during his two sort of abortive campaign attempts about revolution, right? About people power, about us. Not me, us. And he talks occasionally, although it depends on the environment, about being a socialist, right? He identifies as a socialist, although he's quite friendly with people like Michael Render, who identify openly as capitalists. And oh, did you see those spruce trees too? I finally got those growing. I've gotten a ton of spruce. That's my favorite wood by far. Um, and so his defanging. It's like I'm always reminded of Ernest Hemingway. If you guys read that ever, or if you, I don't know if anyone else ever watches this. But I watch it sometimes to see how fucking stupid I am, and I know you probably have it on the background. While you're doing chores or whatever. I really appreciated Death Leopards. It's cool not being not just shouting into the void. But if you were ever assigned The Sun Also Rises or something like this in an English class, one of the big points that Ernest Hemingway makes is that this language that we have that used to signify has now just sort of become flattened out, repurposed for political ends, and it's just made to circulate like a sort of a fiat currency with no underlying value or something like this. I'm paraphrasing a lot, but the words he's thinking about in particular are like loyalty and courage and honor. And he's pointing out the ways in which for example, commodification of culture. Hemingway, not a Marxist, obviously, but he was very conservative in this way. But his point is a good one. That this sort of hyper commodification of everything, including our values, and the sort of mechanization and mass, fungibility of all of our, like even our approach to war, for example, right? The Hemingway doesn't like modern war because there's no space for heroism. Instead, it's sort of emasculating in a way that is very clearly represented by one of his main characters having their penis, or I guess their testicles preserved, but their penis blown off, right? So one of his heroes has the desire, but not the means for to exercise traditional masculine prowess, and so that sort of emasculation, if we could put it that way. It's a quote unquote problematic framing, but that evisceration of the core of values that I think are that I'm conservative about in a way, right? Like solidarity and socialism and worker power, like all of those things I don't want to be totally emptied out and just turned into a copy of a copy of a copy. But Bernie Sanders' version of socialism, while at the one time it's a mere echo of Kautsky and therefore is traditional in that sense, is at another time a total evisceration and flattening out and misappropriation, I guess I should say, of what socialism and solidarity and worker power actually are. It's just rebranding of bourgeois dominance in a way that is very typical of what capital, as Hemingway pointed out, but as many others have also pointed out, very typical of what capitalism does. It takes sites of resistance and reappropriates them. We talked about this just the other day, yesterday, I guess, Death Leopard, you brought up an excellent point in chat. That capitalism is able, or actually, maybe it wasn't you. I had this conversation with someone online as well. So a friend of mine, Petals of Heather, I think is her. Is that what it is? Pearls, Petals of Heather. She goes by the name Lucifer Morningstar. One of my favorite people on Twitter. It might have been her. And I was hoping to write a little essay about this. But capitalism always commodifies resistance. The hashtag resistance bullshit that you see the blue wave people do is just the clearest and clumsiest and clownishest example of this. But Sanders, in my mind, absolutely represents this tendency as well. We're going to do the same old, same old. You're going to vote for a highly oppressive party that doesn't have anything to do with your interests at all other than opposing them. But we're going to call that revolution. And we're going to just to transition briefly into the other, I think, related point. What are you doing out, Cal? Hey, Cal, you're going to die for your escape. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. There's a lot in here. I should kill some of this. The point about social chauvinism, which I really should pick up next time because it dovetails with some other stuff that I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking and thinking about, like MMT, for example. But this, so we'll talk more about state and revolution next time too. But this idea of social chauvinism is basically like, socialism for the workers at home, but imperialism for the workers abroad. If you are a worker in the mother country, right, in the center of empire, here in the United States or in Germany or in Britain, and some of the if you read Lenin's essay, or I guess a short book on imperialism, which is brilliant, I think, then he has some excellent quotations from Engels, which I shared recently on Twitter. You can find them there if you want. That just sound exactly like our working class's attitude towards workers around the world. And it's social chauvinism is exactly what I think needs to be opposed. If you're reading Lenin, pay careful attention to his critiques of Kautsky along the lines of indicating his social chauvinism, because capitalism at a certain stage of development, where free markets are more of a myth and an exception than the rule, and monopolies dominate, at that stage, capitalism must transcend itself into imperialism. And this phase of capitalism is known as imperialism. It's sloppy to talk about them as cause and effect. Imperialism is monopoly capitalism. It's the only way it can function, given the world historical circumstances that we have. And so if you are in a situation where imperialism is capitalism, you can, ipso facto, you cannot oppose capitalism without simultaneously opposing imperialism. And so you see the problem that I'm pointing to here with Sanders, right? His record on imperialism is, if you want to be charitable, a mixed bag. But his, better understood, his record on imperialism is he's pro-imperialist. And if you see him fighting, so-called, for worker power, it is never done, or only at the margins, or seldom, but I feel comfortable saying it is practically never done, in coordination with an overall critique of empire. Instead, there is a strong tendency to divorce the interest of workers around the world from those in the United States. And there is no clear example of this. There are more important examples, but a very clear and obvious example of this are the comments that Sanders made when he was criticized for supporting the building of fighter jets there in his home state of Vermont, where he pretty much just said, look, this weapon of war is going to get built somewhere. It's happening. And so we might as well have those jobs ourselves. Right? I fight for the people of Vermont, and that includes their right to build machines that kill brown people halfway around the globe in countries that our schools are too poorly equipped to even educate us on where they may be located. If you'll forgive that awkward phrasing there, I'm sure you see the point I was trying to get at. Second draft, I'm sure I would have nailed it. And so that is an example of social chauvinism, and another example that we could easily bring up, although I think we would also need to, at this point, introduce into the conversation the related, I think, concept of the MacGuffin, right? The objet petit, to use the Lacanian, Žižekian terminology, if you'll forgive my reading list there, is Medicare for all, right? So Medicare for all is not Medicare for all in the United States is something that is to be supported in isolation, but it does not occur in isolation, and therefore one should be careful about the ways in which one frames support for this program rhetorically. What do I mean by this? Well, there's a lot of poor people in the world and only very few really rich countries. There's a lot of revolutionary potential in the world, but not a whole lot here at the center of empire. These things are connected. It is, and again, I would refer you to Engels' comments as quoted in Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. I believe that's where it is. It may also be, some of this stuff may also be in the, excuse me, the right of nations to self-determination, but I think it's the Imperialism, Highest Stage of Capitalism is where you'll find these comments by Engels that Lenin quotes, and they're in my Twitter feed recently. But there you see basically imperialist politicians and social democrats concurring on the idea that empire, that imperialism, let's be specific, we're not talking about Rome, we're talking about England, and now we're talking about the US, that imperialism buys off, it bribes the workers in the home country with wealth stolen, taken by force from the rest of the globe, and that this is part of the deal. And that, in fact, you can... Nowadays, it would not be in vogue among the leftist to tout this as a benefit, but it sure is among the right wing, and kind of always has been. And Medicare for All, the way it's presented is never presented as... Like, I think it should be like, look, we need to shut down empire. We need to withdraw all military forces, all U.S. forces from every place around the globe and shut down a bunch of domestic military bases as well. And with the money that we save, right, money represents value. With that money, we should fund social programs. And that this would, best occur under a... even if you want to pretend that social democracy has some role here, under a social democratic government. I'm giving reasons why I think that's a pipe dream, but if that's your argument, then that is at least more compelling to me than the one that the social democrats, that argument that I reject for the reasons I'm giving is still more compelling than the actual argument that social democrats give, which has veered way over into this MMT program. When asked about how to fund social programs, they simply say, well, money isn't real. It doesn't represent value. It's just lines on a spreadsheet, and it can be digitally created into existence, and it could be easily deleted out of existence. And therefore, all the government has to do is electronically print some money. They hate it if you say print some money to mock their silly position. And I could talk about MMT and why I think it's extremely erroneous some other time. But their views sidesteps the necessary cooperation between empire and social benefits for domestic workers. So that's my... As I wrap up here, and Death Leopards, if you're still with me, feel free to, if you have any parting comments, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here soon as I go and get a nice view of this house, which I'll work on some more if I get a chance by tomorrow, so it'll look pretty. But those are, I'd like to finish it, but those are my attempts here to bring together a little bit of what Lenin was getting at in State and Revolution, and to do it in a way that it illustrates what makes that text compelling to me. It's so fucking weird to read Lenin and be like, holy shit, he's writing about our time and people that we know. This is not... These debates are live, and our understanding of our own politics would be greatly improved if we better understood the politics of, countries that were having similar debates 100 years ago now. So that's my attempt to draw those things together, to make theory a little bit relevant, and to... Look, it's really hard, it's really exhausting, I gotta be honest, to just talk for an hour. It reminds me of my lecturing days, except I don't have any notes, and I'm distracted by, planting wheat or whatever. So I know I'm not doing a great job, and I probably have made errors. I don't mean to present myself as an absolute master of all of these facts. I'm very obviously not. But I do hope I can help pose interesting questions for folks who maybe have not thought about this stuff and do it in a way that's not purely polemical so that we can have a dialogue and yada, yada, yada. Oh, thanks, Death Leopards. I appreciate it. Well, hit me up on Twitter. I'm about to sign out, but let me know, if you have any ideas about decorating or communism. It's great having you here. I hope we'll get some other folks to join, but since I've only been doing this 3 days and I plan to stick with it for a while, I don't really see any major. I would be surprised if there's a lot of growth right now. It's a saturated market or whatever you want to say, saturated space. But I enjoy playing Minecraft. I think it's kind of fun, and I'm happy with a few of the little improvements I made. I did some resource gathering and let you see all the other cool stuff I was up to, or at least I think it's cool. So I look forward. Yeah, thank you so much to you two, Death Leopards. Um, any feedback you have is very welcome, and I enjoy hanging out with you. So I'm gonna sign off now. All right, comrades, you all have a good night or good morning and or good whatever, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Oh, I should add, I'm gonna start streaming. I think every day, virtually, or maybe every single day at 7 Central, which is when I started tonight, and I'll try to go for about an hour. And if people want to find me on Twitter and say, "Hey, you should talk about this," then I'll do my best to prepare for it. And I'll see y'all next time. Thanks. Bye.